Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching or listening to this, and welcome to another episode of the Non-Identity Podcast. Now, today we're joined by an author, a speaker, and a body positive trainer who coaches in pain reduction. It's Fran Garton. Hello, Fran Garton. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you, Lee? I'm so happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Before we get into things that you do, can you just tell us a bit about where you grew up and where you're from?
Yeah, I was born in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I lived there for many, many years. And then I relocated to Waterloo, which is about an hour from Toronto. And I just stayed there. I came here for university and stayed. And then I met my husband, and he's from here. So we're in Waterloo. So, yeah.
Okay, great, brilliant. So, as we said in the intro, you're a body positive trainer. What is a body positive trainer?
First person that's asked me that on a podcast. Body positive trainer. I'm really passionate about making movement accessible for everybody. And it doesn't, so I have fibromyalgia and I have osteoarthritis. So I find that traditional exercises don't really work for me. And with my clients, with their injuries or with their conditions, it doesn't work for them either. So for the longest time, Lee, I tried to do what everybody else did. I tried to exercise the same way, and then I've kind of had this like realization that I was just causing myself pain, and then I'd have to go through recovery, and then I do the whole cycle over and over again. And I'm trying to put myself in this traditional exercise regime, for lack of a better word, that just didn't work for my body. And so when we talk about body positive, it doesn't matter if you can do 1 or you can do 10. It doesn't matter if the way that I show you an exercise is not the way that it looks for you. It's all about moving so that your body is happy and healthy. And that's really what it's about. It's not about, so I'm not about weight loss. Like if if anyone who's listening and rewatching this is like, oh, she's a trainer. I'm not about weight loss. Like if you come to me, I'm not going to transform your body. I'm not going to say that won't maybe happen, but the focus is not to lose weight. It's not to look a particular way. The focus for me in the whole body positive thing is to love yourself for who you are and how you are, and to move to make yourself feel good. And that is the goal. That's always the goal. So I always say to people, there's always a way. It doesn't matter what we're doing, there's always a way to make it happen. So for some of my clients, they have problems standing, so they do their exercising sitting down. And for other clients, they have problems with mobility, so we work on mobility. And other people have mindset problems, so we spend a lot of our time in our sessions talking about their mindset and talking about, things that might stress them out. So it's all about creating a program that's for you, but the goal is not weight loss. The goal is not to work or to get a particular aesthetic. That's not for me. That's not who I am. It's not what I do. It's one of the biggest pet peeves I actually have with the fitness industry. I don't even use the word exercise. I use the word movement. And I say that I'm a personal trainer because people know what that means. If I say I'm a movement coach or I'm a mobility expert, they're like, I don't know what that means. But when I say personal trainer, everybody goes, oh, I know what a personal trainer is. But if you look at me, and I'm not like, it's not that I'm overweight or anything like that, but I have a large chest and I got a big booty, and I don't look like a typical, and I'll put that in quotation marks, that aesthetic that we get when we look at people who are in the fitness industry. That's just not what people look like. That's not what real people look like. So I provide real movement for real people.
And I think that helps a bit people be relatable, because a lot of people get put off by seeing them what we call the gym heads with all the muscles and all that. I think I'm never going to get to that stage, so I ain't even going to bother.
Yeah, and you don't have to. Like, that's the thing, is that, and that's why it's body positive, in the sense that it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter where you're starting, it doesn't matter what you want to achieve. Like, you can do it. I'm here to guide you and help you with my expertise in, exercise and nutrition and all of that, but how you look is not the goal, because you are perfect the way you are. You are made the way that you are. And that's not to say that I'm not, I don't say, yeah, you should eat healthy, and yes, you should exercise, and you should add movement to your day, but it's not just about the physical part of it, because there's so many components to wellness, and the physical part of it is only one piece of it. And I think people sometimes forget that. So oftentimes people will be exercising, let's say, and they just can't get whatever goal they're trying to achieve. And the reason is not because of their exercise. The reason is because their mindset isn't right, or they're not accepting that they're worthy to be loved the way that they are. They don't have to fix themselves. There's nothing to fix. And I think that sometimes when people go into exercise, they think about, well, there's something wrong with me, and when I lose, I'll just use this as an example, even though I don't do weight loss because it resonates with people. When I lose 20 pounds, then I'll be happy, or I'll get the job that I want, or I have to go to a wedding next month, so I need to lose X number of pounds so that I can go to the wedding and I can enjoy myself. Well, I think you should just go to the wedding and enjoy yourself. Like, the goal of losing 20 pounds is not to enjoy the wedding. The goal is to enjoy the wedding.
And I think there's a lot of an issue as well when you try and put goals on how much weight you lose, because when you then get on the scales and don't see it, it puts you in a worse mood. I remember when I was trying to lose weight, and then I went through a stage of at the start, because obviously when you're a bigger person, you lose weight quicker, faster. So I was losing like £5 a week and all that. I thought I could maintain that, and then it dropped down to losing £2 or £1 a week. I was like, that's it, it's not working now. So then I gave up.
And that's part of it too, Lee. The whole body positive thing is the focus is not about how much you weigh. It's not about what size you are. It's about moving your body. That's what it is. It's about making things accessible for people that maybe have limitations, right? Like I said, some clients work out sitting down. Some, like I teach seated fitness classes because there are people that have mobility issues. So why should they be excluded from movement because they have mobility issues? Or like I have clients who are older. I train seniors. Well, they do a lot of things. Like I'm impressed every time I come to class, like really. And at the beginning, they're always, they think, oh, I can't do that. And whenever I ask them to do something, they just kind of go, I can't do that. And I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's back it up just a little bit. Why don't we start with the foundation? So when we think about movement, and that's sort of the part of the inclusiveness of it, is that I don't necessarily give you like a squat. Like that's a typical exercise. I don't know that my clients do squats. We break it down. Let's start with like, just standing. Let's look at posture and see if we can maintain that, because that's hard work for some people because their posture is bad. But that changes a lot of things when they can actually correct that. So I look at a lot of functional things as well when I'm working with my clients, and it's all about what can they do better tomorrow as an improvement, right? And that's kind of how I look at things. It's about getting better each day, and whatever better is for you, and it's individual for each person.
To create your programs and stuff, is there qualifications that you need, or is there certain training that you had to go on to be able to give the advice over to people?
Yeah, so I have, I'm a certified personal trainer, and then I've done other different kinds of certifications. So I have a stress management certification. I have an active aging, so that's for older adults, certification. I'm a barefoot trainer. I am a pelvic floor specialist. I'm a life coach. Like I mean, if you talk to people who are in various industries, I can give you a long list. I got lots of certifications. I'm working on right now I'm currently working on a meditation certification. So it's all things that I use myself, but then I can use and implement with my clients. So it's important. And the thing too, I don't know how it is where you are, but I know where I am in Ontario and even in Canada, personal training is not regulated. So to be a personal trainer or to be a life coaching is not a regulated industry. You don't have to have certifications to do it. So I would, recommend for anybody who's listening, if you're going to work with someone, whether it's a coaching capacity or a training capacity, ask them what their certifications are. Ask them if they have insurance. Ask them if they have first aid and CPR, because all of those things, all those credentials are not required by law. But so there are people that I know, I'm not going to say they're colleagues because they're not, but I know of them, and they have no certifications. and they don't have CPR, and they have no insurance, and they have they've learned a lot and they know a lot, but they have nothing that holds them accountable. And so I truly believe that, we should have some kind of certification so that we actually are accountable to some organization and to standards, because you're dealing with people sometimes, especially when you're coaching them. You're dealing with things that are traumatic, things that are sensitive, and you do need to have some training on how to deal with it so you can help them, right? And it's a skill set. So I think that if you're going to work with someone, I would definitely ask, what are their qualifications? Where are they? Do they have certifications? Because, it's like tattooing, same thing. Anybody can be a tattoo artist. You don't need to go to art school or learn anything or have a clean facility. I would ask that to see if they have public health that's come out to check their shop. So, do your due diligence when you're working with people in any capacity, I think.
No, I think that's really good advice, because it is the same over here. There is PT qualifications and courses, but really I could put a message out on Facebook and say, come for a personal training session in the park on Saturday at 10. It's £5 and people can just turn up. So there is no regulation. I don't know about you, but I've done a level 4 training in counselling children and adolescents, so I understand a bit of counselling. But when I'm having a bad day, I know what the process should be and what to do, but I can't seem to take my own advice. How do you keep your mindset well? Because especially like you said, you're dealing with people with trauma, so there's responsibility you take on. Plus, you've got your own things going on in your own life. So how do you keep yourself in check, really?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I journal a lot. And I know it's funny because I had a coaching client before I got on with you, and we were talking about journaling, and she's like, does it help? And I said, well, it does, because it's kind of like I think of it like a parking lot. So if I have worries or I have stress, I just put it down on the pages. But today, I don't know what happened today, but today when I was journaling, I didn't know what to write. So but the whole point is you just keep writing, right? So the advice, that I give and that I've been given is just, I don't know what to write today. I have no idea what I'm going to put here. Why am I journaling? And I fill the whole entire page with, I don't know what I'm writing. And it's okay, because it's about freeing the mind, and it's about just letting your thoughts go. And so some days are really, really productive and really purposeful, and other days are, I don't know what I'm doing in my journal, but I just keep writing. So journaling is really, really important. Stress management, like really keeping your stress down and really realizing that, it's, there's so many things in life to stress about. Like, we could stay stressed and worried forever. And the truth is that we have very little control over many of the things that we worry about. And to really try to remind myself, okay, I can't control this. I can't control that person. And if it's something I can control, well, then I like to make lists, so I can make a solution list of what could I do to control this situation. But, stress is such a big piece of life. So really trying to minimize your stress and really recognize, and this is a practical tool that I would say with stress, is to really recognize, are you feeling stress or is it a different emotion? And I find that we use the word stress as a really umbrella term for many things in life. I'm like, I'm stressed. Are you stressed? I say that to myself, and I say it to my clients. Are you really stressed? And if you are, great. Like, feel the stress and deal with it. But in many cases, we're not stressed. We're overwhelmed. We're anxious. We're angry. We're sad. We're frustrated. We're confused. Like, there's other emotions that are happening. So identify the emotion, like identify what you really feel, because if it's not stress, the strategy to deal with it is different from sadness to stress. And from anger and stress, like, they're different strategies and they're different emotions. So really identify what you're feeling.
Also got told, which I found is a good technique as well, is change your expectations. So instead of using the word that shouldn't have happened, change it to I'd rather that didn't happen, because then you can't get as angry. So say if like someone's shouting at you, you'll get angry, be like, they shouldn't be speaking to me like that. That's not fair. Change it to I'd rather they didn't speak to me like that, because then you can be in the mindset of I'd rather they didn't speak to me like that. They did, so now we move on.
Absolutely.
So it's changing your expectations.
Yeah, I love that. And and just to tack onto that, Lee, the other thing too is sometimes, when people are, your example, people are yelling at you for something, it's not about you. There's something with them. They've got other, so like we think about all the things that happen in your life and in your day and all the things that you deal with. And then you have an interaction with somebody, and that's kind of like that moment where you're like, I just can't take it anymore. And it has nothing to do with that person. They just are the ones that are receiving it. So when you're receiving that from somebody, just take a breath and just kind of say, okay, yes, I would have rather this were happening, or I'd rather they didn't talk to me like that. And then maybe tack on to the end, maybe they got something going on. Like maybe they got something going on in their day or in their life that has nothing to do with you. And unfortunately, they yelled at you. But they might have some other stuff, because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes with everybody else. Right? So give them sort of a bit of grace to see maybe they got something else, right? And then that takes you out of the equation, because it's not about you. It's about them and what they've got going on. You just happen to be in their vicinity when they happen to have a little bit of a freak out moment. But it's not necessarily about you, right? And that's something as well to consider. So journaling, reducing stress. You mentioned the word should. I like to do an exercise with my clients where I change the word should to can. So the idea of should is like a expectation and responsibility. It feels very pressure heavy for me. And if you change, like, I should have done blah, 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 if you change that to I can do, and then it gives me, I feel the word can is a little bit lighter, and it gives me an option. Like, I can get angry at Lee, or I can just ignore his texts until he figures stuff out, and then later. You know what I mean? Like, it's different than I should respond to him. No, I'm not. That feels heavy to me. But when I say I can, well, but I can also say no, right? So options are nice as well when it comes to sort of dealing with what's going on in the day.
You're also a speaker. What do you talk about all this when you're doing speaking? Or is that a different subject you're speaking about?
No, I do. So speaking things that I talk about stress management. I do a lot of talks on how to deal with stress and strategies for that. And I do talks on body acceptance and body image, because I think it's really, really important. I think we are inundated with like images and things and just expectations of how we should be and how we should look. And I think it's very damaging, and not just to women, because I think oftentimes when we talk about body image and body acceptance, we often talk about people who identify as women, but it also affects men, and I think we don't really always think about that, and it starts at a young age. Like I had someone that said, my daughter has problems with her body image, and I'm like, okay, great, she's 14. I'm like, oh gosh, like 14. Like, that's kind of when sometimes it starts earlier than that, right? And so we need to be very proactive in, teaching our children and teaching ourselves to love ourselves how we are and to accept ourselves how we are. So I do talk a lot about that. And then I also talk a lot about fitness and movement. I do a lot of talks on barefoot training and the importance of the feet, and mobility. I'm really big on mobility, so I talk a lot about those things as well.
Yeah, going back to the body image stuff, do you feel social media plays a big part in how people are with their bodies now?
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, because the thing is that I don't know if you know people, maybe you do, when you look at those images of people in, I'll use the fitness industry, like models and people who are in competition. Competition's a perfect example. I had a friend once, and I was talking to him, and he had done a fitness competition. He had bodybuilding, and we were talking, and I said to him, I really want to do one. He goes, you absolutely do not want to do one. And I said, why? He goes, it is the worst 12 weeks of your whole entire life leading up to competition. I'm like, really? He goes, and then when you get to the competition, it's even worse for your mental health. And I was like, really? He goes, it's so bad for your body, your digestion, your everything. It's terrible. But for your mindset and for your personal, like acceptance and self-worth, he goes, it is horrible. He goes, because you get there and you show up and you're there and you've been working so hard for 12 weeks, and then you get on this stage and people look at you and they critique everything about you, and then you walk off the stage and you didn't win, you didn't place, you didn't do anything, and you're like, why did I do all of that sacrificing and hard work for nothing? Because it didn't make me healthier. He's like, so I absolutely, definitely do not recommend anybody does a bodybuilding competition of any kind. And so, but you see these people, right? And social media, you see these images everywhere, right? And you're looking at it, but do you really understand what goes into prepping for a competition like that? It is ridiculously, like, it's just mind-blowing, the things that they have to do and the strictness that they have to live by. And I'll put live in quotation marks because I don't really think it's living. But and for what? For what? For someone to say you look okay? Like, I have to change everything about me so that I can go onto a stage, or that I can go and get pictures taken somewhere so someone says, yes, you're attractive. Why do you get to tell me that I'm attractive? Right? And that's this stuff. What about all the inside stuff? Like, is that not the important things? Is it not better that I'm a kind person? I don't think that that's on social media. Every once in a while you see that, oh, so-and-so donated some money, or, you know, you're like, yeah, but otherwise they're not very nice. Like, it's all about the visuals, right? It's all about the optics.
I totally agree with you, because in a way, like, using the competition thing, like you said, someone goes on stage and other people criticise, it's instant in people's hands. You put a picture up for thousands of people to criticise. Because no one ever wants to say, as you said, no one ever wants to say, oh, you look nice. It's, oh, what's your hair like? Or why did you use that filter, or whatever. And it's all in our hands. And young people are just getting hold of it so quickly as well. As you said, it's starting them off at a young age. But I also, not just it affecting the person who's taking the picture, it's teaching, I think, our young people to be meaner. Because it's in their hand and stuff, they want to criticise straight away. Where would they get that tendency if they didn't have it there and then in their hand?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, you know, as parents too, Lee, or caregivers, or aunts and uncles, or, you know, whatever capacity if you have young people in your life, like, you are setting the stage for them. Like, you're setting it up. So if you're, you know, your go-to is to look at a picture and critique someone and go, oh my gosh, she should never wear that dress, or, oh my God, I can't believe that Lee wore that. Why would he wear that shirt? It's horrible on him. Like, that shouldn't be your go-to. Like, your go-to should be, wow, like, oh, that's a nice dress. It looks really good on her. Oh, I like her hair. Like, it's so to me, we need to start fostering that more. So it's funny because was it Saturday? Yeah, I was getting in the car and I was in my driveway, and so I just walked out and I was going into my car, and this woman was walking down my street on the sidewalk, and she had her headset on, and she stops at the end of my driveway, and she takes her earbuds out and she goes, I love your hair. It's the best. I love your haircut. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. She goes, oh my God, it's so amazing. She goes, I'm getting my haircut today. I'm like, really? She goes, I'm chopping it all off. And I said, oh, like all, because she had long hair, all of it. She goes, just like yours. I'm going to do that. That's what I'm telling my hair, because I really like it. It looks really good. And she's like, have a good day. And off she went. And I thought, oh my God, like, what a nice thing to say to somebody. Or like, you walk down the street and you're like, I like your dress. And the person just, it amazes me, because people are just kind of taken aback. Like, and I think that that's what we should encourage in people and in our kids and ourselves, is that when you see somebody, give them a compliment. Like, I have a woman who comes to my classes every week. She has the best workout pants I've ever seen. And every week she comes, she's wearing a different pair of leggings, and every week she comes and goes, oh my God, I love your leggings. And she says, you said that last week. I go, I know, because I loved them last week, but I think I said last week to her, I go, these are the best ones. She goes, are they? Because last week they were the best ones. I said, I know, but next week those ones will be the best, but it makes someone feel good, right? And so I think if you can make people feel good, why wouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't you give them a compliment? And that should be our go-to. And I think we've been so conditioned and by everybody, and social media has made it worse, I think, because it's not like, I don't think we see people as people. Like, they'll say something horrible on social media and they'll put a comment and they'll troll people, and you're like, why would you say that to somebody? Like, would you actually walk up to somebody and say something so rude? And if you do, well, then you got I think there's other things happening there. Like, I think there's a lot of things going on there. But you wouldn't do that, right? Like, put yourself in the position of
Yeah,
somebody else. Like, why would you really want someone to say that to you, or would you rather them say something nice to you? Like, would you want people to
exactly.
say bad things to you all the time? No, it's horrible. And the thing is too, though, Lee, like, for in some of those cases, like I mentioned before about someone yelling at you, they got other things going on. So maybe that person, again, they might have their own trauma, they might have their own things that they are dealing with, and that's fine. They have to work on those things, but that's not the excuse for you to mimic their behavior.
You're also an author. What have you wrote?
Okay, so I have written, I've co-authored, I wrote a chapter in a book of authors, and the book is called Body Bliss, The Journey to Body Acceptance, and it's 15 authors, and each wrote a chapter on our journey to body acceptance and what that looks like. And then I've done some articles. I had an article on Reader's Digest UK, actually. Yeah, and on fibromyalgia and how to exercises that are good for fibro. And then I've done stuff on Thrive Global. I had things published, and then there's a magazine in the States called Ladies Who Leverage. So I did an article for them about stress management and techniques to manage stress.
And how do you go around the writing process? Do you lock yourself away and just write, or do you write a little bit and go back? And how do you know? Because like we're having a conversation, so we can adapt our conversation to how each other speak to each other. But people look at text, and everyone will take it differently. So when you're writing, how do you get the style to make sure it's accessible for everyone?
That's a good question. I think when I'm the biggest thing for me when I'm writing is my purpose. And my purpose is always, when people finish reading, what will they be able to do differently? What strategies could they learn to implement in their life, and how could it be helpful to them? That's sort of the outcome that I always want. So when I wrote the chapter in the book, it was to give people the idea. It was about lessons that I learned through my journey of body acceptance and being diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And my goal was, I hope that people that read this, that are suffering with fibromyalgia, can actually see that, so these are some of the lessons I learned, and maybe they could then have those in their life, or they could learn from that and do things a little bit differently, or try something new. When the stress articles, strategies to deal with stress. Maybe there's some things that you don't think about, because I think sometimes, when we're reading things or we're trying to learn something or do something differently, we think it needs to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Like you asked about how I deal with mental health and my mindset. I journal. It doesn't have to be I don't journal for 5 hours. It doesn't have to be every day. Like, I try. If it doesn't work out every day, it doesn't. Like, I don't worry about that. It's just, I sit down and I write. If it's 5 minutes, awesome. If it's 10, great. If it's an hour, okay. It doesn't have to be any specific thing. So I think the goal is that little tiny things done consistently will move you forward to wherever you want to be. And I always kind of think about that when I'm writing. How can this help somebody? What could they take away and go use? Because we're busy. There's resources everywhere. We can read everything. So I want you to read what I wrote and go, oh, well, I'm going to try that. Oh, that sounds pretty straightforward. So I want someone to learn, and I want someone to have something to implement. Those are kind of my overarching things. When it comes to the process of writing, sometimes you gotta be in the mood to write, and sometimes you're not in the mood to write. So for me, if I feel that I'm like, oh, I feel like I want to write something, then I'll sit down and write something. And if I don't, then I don't. So I'm not a person that writes every day, because I've done some trainings on how to write a book, and they're like, write every day. Sit down, same time, same place, same system every day. And I don't do that. Maybe I will in the future. I don't know. But right now, that's not what happens. Right now, I'm really trying to, because my fibro causes pain and stress causes it to flare. I'm trying to really listen to my body and go with what feels good. rather than pushing myself to be productive. Because I used to push really hard to be productive, and that did not go well from a health perspective. So now I'm just kind of, if I feel like writing, I do it. And if I don't, then I don't. And it's okay. It's not my main livelihood, so that's a little bit different. If I were, I don't know, Jody, somebody else, and I had to publish, and my editors were waiting, and the publishing house was like, "You need to give me a book now." That's a different story. I'm not there, so I don't have to worry about that.
So you said you've got fibromyalgia. What is that condition, and how was you diagnosed with it?
Yeah, so fibromyalgia is an autoimmune condition. It is lumped in with the arthritis family, but it is not arthritis. It is not arthritis. It does not affect the joints. So fibromyalgia affects the connective tissue in the body, so all the muscles and all the tendons and stuff like that. So anything that moves, right? And basically, what fibro is it's a hypersensitivity to external stimuli. So heat, light, sound, touch, smell, all of those things, you're hypersensitive. So like right now I have, like, on the other side of my laptop, I have a ring light, which is extremely bright for me right now. I find it quite bright. And sounds, I'm very sensitive to sounds, and temperature, I'm very sensitive to that. So, but the thing is that why that matters is, let's imagine you banged your hand on the corner of your desk, and it would like hurt a little bit, and you go, oh, you might get a little bit of a bruise, but after a couple minutes it would probably go away and you wouldn't really notice it. But for somebody that's fibro, because you're heightened, your receptors to stimuli are heightened, that could be excruciating pain for like hours, and it could cause a flare. And then that would be pain for days. And so the thing with fibro is that there's this extra sensory response in the body. And because those pain receptors are extra sensitive, they don't actually know when things are painful. They don't actually know when it's too hot or it's too loud. It's just always too loud. So it's a condition that is mysterious.
How common is it? Is it quite a common condition?
Fibro is, let me just think here. 1 in 5 people in Canada have chronic pain, live in chronic pain. From a population point of view, I think it's about worldwide, I want to say it's like 10% maybe, which doesn't sound like a lot, right? Like when you say it, you're like 10% of the pop, but like when you think about it, we got 1 in 5 people in Canada. That's like 7.8 million people, give or take, right?
8 billion people in the world.
Well, our population in Canada is only 33 million.
Yeah.
7.8 million have fibro. So it is much, it's not as common as some other things, but I think it does really impact people in a big way. The most common symptom that people have is exhaustion, because you can't really sleep well because you have pain. And the reason that you have pain is, so, and this goes to the diagnosis part, is there's no test for fibromyalgia. What you get diagnosed with is there are 18 trigger points, they're called, so are sensitive areas on the body. So they're very sensitive to touch. And if you have 11 out of the 18, they die, and it's been unexplained pain, and the over 3 months continuously, then they diagnose you with fibromyalgia. But they test everything else and rule all the other things out, make sure there's nothing else going on. And it's interesting because people that have fibromyalgia, in many cases, they have inflammation. But fibromyalgia is not an inflammatory condition. It's not a degenerative condition. It's also not a progressive condition by definition. Okay, but there is inflammation, and a lot of that stems from what's happening in the body. So what's happening in your gut, what's happening in your head, what's happening in your heart, like all of these things go together, and then that can cause inflammation, and then that can cause resulting pain in the body. And so it's kind of a interesting condition. I'll use the word interesting. It's frustrating. Everybody that has fibro is different. So some people have good response to medication, and they have to take medication. I don't take medication at all for mine, and I'm pain free. Today my pain's zero, like I'm zero. It was a long journey, and the thing too is that the more you dive into pain and what pain is and how it's caused, pain originates in the brain, and
Yeah.
it tells the body that you have it, and it does it for a very practical reason, to keep you safe. Like, that's why you have pain. So if I bang my hand, the receptors say, ow, that hurts, don't do it again, because you could really injure yourself. Like, it's really a protective mechanism that we have pain in the body, but it does originate in the brain. The body doesn't know it has pain, the brain tells us that it does. And it does it for a variety of reasons, right? To protect us, to make sure that, we don't do things that further injure ourselves. It could be for a protective sense in an emotional protection from, depending on what's happened in your life in the past, what other trauma that you've experienced, and other situations that have taken place. So pain is a very challenging and complicated thing to uncover. There's so much research about pain. There are people that don't have any pain receptors at all, and they don't know that they've hurt themselves. Whereas fibro is the exact opposite. We have hypersensitive pain receptors, so things could be very intense for me, and you're like, I don't know how did that bother you? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Right? So it is a frustrating condition, and if you talk to people that have fibro, everybody has a different experience with it. And so everybody's fibro is different, and the way that you treat it, most traditional medical paths will lead you down the medication path, which I did for many years, and it was fine, but it didn't fix the problem, the root cause. It just attacked the symptoms, which is perfectly fine. So everybody has their own perspective of what they want to do. And when I work with clients, we dive into some emotional things, because negative emotions cause pain in the body. And some people don't want to deal with that. And for some people, there's also a benefit for them to remain in pain.
Did you have it all your life, the condition?
No. I got diagnosed about 10 years ago. And prior to my diagnosis, I just had so what it felt like is I spent many, many months, now that I think about it, probably close to a year, actually. And it got really bad near that 12-month mark. But I would have feelings of pain in my hands and arms, and in my feet and my legs, and it felt like electricity. It felt like a bolt of electricity. And so I would pass out from exhaustion. I didn't sleep, I just passed out. And then I would be jolted awake from this pain in my hands and my feet and my legs. And nothing worked. Nothing could take the pain away, not even take the edge off of it. It was horrible. And finally, I got diagnosed. They gave me some medication, which was okay. It kind of helped. Like it helped a little bit. But once I kind of got down to the root of the cause of it, dealt with some emotions and some things that I had been holding on to, that really changed things. Changing my food, that changed a lot. As far as my pain level, and it's a journey. I'm still working on it. I've been working on it for the past 5 years. So.
And has it restricted you being able to do things that you've wanted to do? Because obviously, if the pain gets too much, like say you wanted to work somewhere where you need to use your hands, would that restrict you? So has that affected you in your life?
That's a great question, Lee. When I was first diagnosed, and I was just dealing with the symptoms and not really dealing with the root cause of it, and then it definitely would. Today, I would say that it might limit me, but not as much as it would have in the past. And I think that what's happened is I've become a little bit more open to trying things that I wouldn't necessarily try, or doing things in a different way. But the key with people who have fibromyalgia is that there's inflammation. You have inflammation. And if you can reduce your inflammation, you can reduce your pain. And even though it's not an inflammatory condition, the inflammation causes pain in the body. So anybody who's dealing with that, and any kind of health condition, I would say deal with your inflammation and bring your inflammation down, because once the inflammation comes down, things change. It really does. So now, not as much limitation, but I do know, like, I do have arthritis in my shoulders, and I do have it in my foot. So I do have to be mindful of some things, but I don't think it limits me as much as it did in the past. For sure, it's changed.
And did it affect you in social situations? Because if you had inflammation or you was in a lot of pain, would you be embarrassed or try and hide away or anything like that?
Yeah, when I was in the height of my pain, before I had my diagnosis and I didn't know what was going on, I would be at about a 15 out of 10 on a daily basis. That's where I was. Like, I would wake up in the morning and I would lie in bed and I would calculate how I was going to get out of bed. And then I get out of bed, get into the shower, and then I cried in the shower, like a lot. I cried every day in the shower, because I was in so much pain. Like, I was already exhausted and I hadn't even started my day.
Yeah.
And then have to figure out how I'm going to get myself out of the shower, dressed, ready for work, and then go into work. Like, it was, everything was calculated. And the thing is that you don't really realize it, because you just kind of go through the motions, right? And so at that point, there were a lot of times where I just didn't go to things. I canceled things, and sometimes at the very last minute, because I felt really guilty, because I felt like I should be able to do this. All I'm doing is going out for dinner with friends, or I'm just going to visit somebody, or, we're going to go see a movie and I'm just going to sit in the movie theater. Like, I'm not doing anything, and I should be able to do that. And that's where that should comes in, right? It's like, but I can't. Like, I can't. And the thing is, I can, and that's where the mindset shift changes. It comes to, okay, I'm just sitting in the movie theater, so I can do that, and then I could be in pain for days afterwards, recovering, or I can say no and be honest with people. And the thing is, people don't really understand, and it's kind of like, when you have fibro, and this, I like to use this explanation, the spoonie theory. So anybody who deals with chronic pain, many of us identify as spoonies. And what her theory is that everything that you do in your day takes a unit of energy. Okay? And your spoons, so let's say we get 10 spoons at the beginning of the day, each spoon is a unit of energy. And every time you do something, you spend one of your spoons. And at the end of your day, you've used your spoons. But so that's generally. So for you, if you don't have chronic pain, you can regenerate your spoons, because you could have a nap, you could sit down, have a cup of tea, just take a break, do some breathing, and then your energy comes back up. For somebody that's chronic pain, those spoons are finite. They are not unlimited. So if I have 10 spoons during my day, so think about the height of my pain, I had to get up and have a shower. That's one spoon. I had to get myself ready for work, another spoon. I had to get myself to work, that's another spoon. I haven't even started my day and I've already spoons. Then I have to interact with people at work. I was a teacher, so I had a classroom of students. Okay, so I hit break time at 10 o'clock in the morning and I've used 5 of my 10 spoons.
Wow.
So now I have to figure out how I'm going to get through the rest of my day. And so it's a good mental image when you're dealing with somebody who has chronic pain, because really think about that. Like, if you've met them, let's say at the end of the day, how many spoons do they have left? Like, none. Probably none. They probably ran out of spoons by lunchtime, right? And if they're raising kids and doing all these other things. So it's the exhaustion and the limited energy that you have is something that's very frustrating. And a lot of people don't really understand it, because they're like, well, just go lie down. Yeah, but it's not like that. It's not like I can go lie down and it goes away. It's there. The pain is there. So when I was, from a social point of view, it really did change the way that I did things. And I did hide it for a really long time. I talk about it now. And when I wrote my chapter in Body Bliss, people that know me and have known me for years, even my family, read it and they went, oh my gosh, like, I had no idea that that's what it was like. And it's like, yeah, that's what it was like. And they're like, we had no idea. Because people that have chronic pain, like, honestly, you say, how are you? And we say, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Because you don't understand. You have no idea what it feels like and what you're trying to deal with. Like, for some days, you're just trying to keep it together so that you can make it home, so you can go to bed and not, yell at somebody. Like, that's kind of sometimes how you try and get through your day, like, honestly, because you're in that much pain. So it really is hard, but for a long time I just kind of pushed through, and then I finally was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm not an old woman, but I live a long, healthy life, and I just can't do this anymore. And I think it's important to tell people, right? Like, how you're feeling, because they need to know. I think they need to know. I did a presentation actually a couple weeks ago for the fitness industry in Ontario, and it was about working with clients who have chronic pain. And what I said to them is, when you're talking to people, your clients or whoever, like, ask them, like, so what's your pain? Like, what's your pain level? Like, because that makes a difference. Like, to acknowledge to somebody, instead of saying, how are you, just say, how's your pain today? Like, what's your pain level today? Give me, like, out of 10, where are you? Because that changes the interaction. Because I'm sure that if someone said to you, well, I'm at an 8 out of 10 today, you'd be like, oh, okay. Like, that might change, how long you visited with them, or what kinds of things you talked about. Maybe the conversation will be much lighter than if they were in less pain. You might have more in-depth conversation, or you might visit for longer. So, knowing that and just voicing that to people that are dealing with a variety of pain issues is really helpful. And this is only my opinion, Lee. I'm sure everybody's different, but I like that, because then I feel that people are really hearing that I deal with pain, and that it's okay. And not that they're giving me permission, because I don't need permission from them, but just to open the conversation that, if you need to leave, or if you need to cut this short, it's okay, because I understand. I don't know what you feel like, but I understand the situation. And so I think so changing the way that we talk to people about that, or what do you think about doing this, instead of let's go to the movies. Yeah. What do you think about this or this? So that's another way to do it too, when you're talking with people that have pain. Instead of saying let's do this, let's have some options, or what would work for you? And that just opens it up to let them know that you're aware that they might not be feeling the best today.
Where can people find you on social media if they want to contact you?
Yeah. They can find me on Instagram. It's Fran Garton Pain Coach on Instagram, and give me a follow. And I've got I post a whole bunch of things, videos, tips, whatever, lots of different things on.
And we'll put the link in the description below as well. One last question, and this is a question that I ask all my guests. Your answer will not change your life's journey, but if you had 30 seconds with your 13-year-old self, what would you say?
Oh, I would tell my 13-year-old self that you're amazing just the way that you are. You're this magical unicorn. Everything that you want is going to happen for you, and there's no need to worry about anything, because it will happen. And just accept you as you are. Well,
Fran, thank you so much for your time and for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully you'll love to come back on in a couple of months or something.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me, and I really hope that it was helpful for your audience.